Why and how do we imprint our foals every year on the Hashknife? That's today's question on Egg Shorts. Why we imprint our foals is more philosophical than anything. For us, it has worked for us in the past and it continues to work, so that's why we continue to do it. There are people that will tell you that there's absolutely no reason to imprint your foals, that it's a bunch of craziness, it's a made up idea, it doesn't make any sense, and that's okay. We're not here to bash that. It's simply our philosophy that if we work with our foals early on, and then eventually our weanlings and turning yearlings, that it will help us in the future. Part of that is that it's a younger mind. It's easier to kind of mold and to teach than it is an older horse. Back in the day, my great grandfathers and further out, they wouldn't touch a horse until they were 4 or 5 years old so that they were just ready to go. They could work them hard for 30 days. That's where you get the 30-day horse. Within a month, you'd have a horse completely lined out, ready to go, and you're working the ranch on those horses. It's fully developed. That's it. For us, we like to try and teach them at a younger age so it's easier when we do eventually step up on those horses. Anymore, we won't step up on horses until they're 3, but definitely when they're 4. 3 is cutting it a little close. We will not do it at 2 years old anymore. That shows that it's had back issues, developmental issues doing that. So we will work with them, at least mentally, teach them in the round corral, any sort of drills and type of lessons that you can think of for horse training. We have no problem doing that. And then that's part of the reason why we like imprinting our foals. It's the same principle. So we try to do everything as naturally and hands-off as possible. You'll see a mare full out in the pasture. We'll leave them alone. We'll let them mother up, get first milk, just like you would a calf. And then we'll bring that mare and that foal, we'll bring them in and we will put a halter on them. And typically we only keep the halter on for a week to 10 days. Another point of contention, people will say, don't put on the halter whatsoever. I'm not necessarily disagreeing with that either. The only reason we do it is we have it right outside the window. We can monitor 24/7 if we need, and then we are able to check on them, make sure that they stay out of trouble. We don't shy away from the handling. That's part of the process and the reasoning behind it. That's the philosophy. If you've had a horse that's ever been injured, think about it. When you go to work with that horse, especially if there's a, let's say, a foot injury, and you work with that foot injury every single day, eventually they tend to be one of your better horses when it comes to foot care. Sometimes we've had horses get their shoulders torn up, and when you get their shoulder injury and you go and irrigate it and you try to fix it day after day, and you see them 2 to 3 times a day, and then you kind of slowly heal that injury back up, that horse oftentimes becomes one of your better horses because of the handling. It's the same philosophy, the same principle that we had behind it as well. Now, how we go about imprinting our foals is a little bit different. We don't go out there and we don't spend hours or even a half hour with the foals. That's not part of the process. What we will try to do is multiple times a day, very short periods at a time. The longest we will typically go is 5 to 10 minutes, and that is very long for a foal because you got to remember it's a baby. So what we do is we will have that halter. Well, it has a really long lead. We'll grab that long lead, slowly reel them in. We're not trying to harm that baby. Slowly get your hands on them, introduce yourself, and then we start petting them. That's it. We only pet them. And then we'll start working on their feet, picking up their feet a little bit, getting them used to having their ears touched and their mouth touched. And what does that do? That prepares them for trimming their feet and hooves, potentially shoeing them. Maybe one day if we need a farrier to come out for some reason, that farrier can handle them. If a vet needs to work with them, the vet can work with that horse without getting hurt. And then the other thing is you've got our fingers going in their mouth, and we're not trying to insert it down their esophagus. We're just simply putting our fingertip in their mouth, and that simulates what later on? Warming. Then eventually that'll simulate bidding. And those are all little tiny foundational things that they realize that when we're touching them and we're petting them and we're playing with them and giving them loves, they understand that humans are not bad. So when it comes to the things that are undesired, like vaccinations and DNA pull, where we have to extract hair to register the horses, it's not pleasant, but they also understand that we're not there to harm them every time. So those type of things are the reasons why and the process how we do it. Again, we will take the foals, we'll only play with them for a couple times a day, very short periods of time. We will then take that mare and foal, release both of them out to the pasture, like they're out in the pasture right now with the stallion, and they get to enjoy being a horse, which is important.